short, long story short, we decided that we ought to get married, that we had a lot in common, and we both loved art, we both loved history, and maybe Harpers Ferry would be a good place to live. It's kind of halfway between New England and St. Augustine, Florida. So we saw a for sale sign on this rather strange house that looked like it was made of granite, but actually it was a Sears Roebuck house from 1908, built by a machine that made the concrete blocks and molded columns and so forth. It was for sale. I immediately thought that house with 3 stories, and it had been turned into a five apartments. The house had about 14 rooms, and it had been turned into an apartment house, but it had possibility because the owner had been sensitive about where the petitions were put and didn't destroy some of the tin ceiling. And then we learned, of course, that the Kaplins were a well-liked family in Harpers Ferry and had a department store and was well known up until the 40s, when the Kaplins, because of flooding and so forth, and the town going into disrepair, decided to leave and go to Washington, D.C. The other reason for having a big house like this, we felt that we could experiment with our art by fixing it up and maybe designing some of the rooms. That was in 1971. There was a sign that went out and said Stowell Galleries before we even were married, or a couple of months before that, because somehow I said, this is going to be a gallery. We're going to probably share it with the public. It would be an interesting thing to do. Over the years, people have enjoyed our mixture of art with furnishings we have of the period of the house. The house is a period piece. It certainly is an American enterprising thing to start working with concrete early in 1908. Concrete was kind of unknown. It was used for commercial, but they began to use it for housing, especially poured concrete foundations. But the inside was unique because it was kind of a modern house. It didn't have any fireplaces, but it had steam heat, and all the radiators original on the first floor, we've kept them. But the Kaplins had the first probably electricity in Harpers Ferry, the first toilet bathroom. There was also an outhouse. Stephen Hamilton, I sold a lot of his things that I bought, and I only have a few left. I sold 2 last summer. He was the watercolorist. He did Massachusetts scenes, and he went to Hawaii. I sold all the Hawaii ones. But he was my father's first cousin. He did beautiful birch trees and nature things. Okay. Oh, bed and breakfast, yes. The next thing was, since people did seem to enjoy visiting the house, and we were encouraged by townspeople and relatives, well, maybe you could have a bed and breakfast. Well, the kind of joke is I like to cook, and I was a cook in the Army, so it's easy for me to cook for 500 people, but getting it down to 4 or 5 took a little planning. I think people that come to Harpers Ferry, and our galleries specifically, is the ambience of living in a house that was built by somebody who lived in Harpers Ferry, worked in Harpers Ferry, and that we're the second owner, and we bought some furnishings from the Kaplins. It's pretty authentic.